I hope help them through their lives, because some of them really have a hard time struggling, especially now with the way things are in this world. They just need as many people to be there for them as they can.
Well, this is our first Wall of Fame without Joe. Joe was certainly a key member.
I'm really excited to go to the FMN meeting and to work with my colleagues to show how New Brunswick is a key player in this moment and in the nation-building work that the federal government wants to do.
Welcome to This Week Uncut, where we take a look at the top stories of the week from CHCO-TV and The Courier. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
Well, it was another exciting week here at CHCO and The Courier, and I know we say that every week. I am well aware.
Sure do.
But this week really was just a little bit extra special, and for good reason. I'm going to let Nathalie, as the editor of The Courier, do the visual debut.
So we have a physical copy of The Courier. It has been printed. It is in actual newsprint, which is very exciting for me as a newspaper nerd. The Courier is free now. We're still working out the distribution, which will likely be done by the people you see here on the cameras and who work in the background. And it's a collective effort here, so be patient. You will see a copy of this in a local store or business or cafe. But it's exciting to have this first physical copy for folks in Charlotte County.
It's been about a year since it was last printed. Hasn't been quite that long since we've become the owners of it here at CHCO. It's now structured as a nonprofit, so that might be interesting for people at home to know too. Hence why it's free, and it will be in, as you said, stores across Charlotte County. If you are a store or business that might be interested in having copies in your location, just contact us at the email news@chco.tv is really the best email to reach us out. Let us know. We will be doing a bit of a distribution run to some locations that we've selected for the time being, but it's not going to be breaking news. That's for online. So CHCO.tv will still be where you go for your home for breaking news. This is coming out once a month. It's more of a curated snapshot of the moment in Charlotte County. Stories, the cover stories on just the return of the Courier and the work that went into that. But you'll find a story on Herb McGee, who just turned 100 here in St. Andrews, World War II vet. Then we have a profile on Mary Cunningham, the owner of the Border Cafe in St. Stephen, a young entrepreneur. She was just nominated for an award as well. We've got Ted Michener back. Lots of great local stories. Sid Kernigan at St. George and his walk for ALS next week. So a lot of great local content. So great to have it back in our hands in Charlotte County.
Yes, but please always continue to go to CHCO TV for breaking news or for things that are more urgent. Also, this only prints once a month, so that will be the version that you will see for June. And in July, we will have a new version with new content and new things for you to read and look at. And so we're very excited to finally have the Courier back in print.
And also open to ideas. The first one is it probably will be our smallest one, as we're just sort of breaking the ice with figuring out what we're doing in print. But I think we're looking at the idea of maybe bringing games back. There's been a lot of talk in the community too about who's visiting who and things that used to be seen in the Courier. We do have some of the old contributors back in the paper as well, so that's exciting. But if there are elements that you think would make it interesting, we're still navigating what we bring back and how we do it. So interested in hearing from the community as well.
Absolutely. But that wasn't the only exciting news that happened this week. Debbie Lord retired. And our very own Lucas Kohler was at the retirement party. So Lucas, when you were there, what were the vibes? What was happening there?
Well, I mean, everyone was so excited. It was amazing. Like, there were so many people there. A lot of the town was there.
What was it like as a youth in this town going there after school and while you were growing up?
Well, it was great. I mean, like, Debbie provided for almost everyone. Like, all the kids. There's so many different things that the youth center offered, from the skate park to meals to a place to stay for the afternoon. And Debbie coached a lot of people in hockey too. Yeah.
Oh, she was trying to retire for a while. She kept being pulled back in. I think her heart's just so much a part of that youth center. For people who might not know Debbie, might be watching this from another community, describe her iconic look. What was Debbie known for? You could spot Debbie from a mile away, even though she's a petite person.
Yeah, she's pretty small. She's always got like a hockey jersey on and some colorful socks. She told me that she just throws all of her socks in one drawer and just picks two out. And then those are the two that she bears that day.
And it was interesting when I heard her speech, and when I listened to your story, as someone who has had mentors across pretty vulnerable parts of my life, I can just imagine the value and the care that Debbie brought to the kids whose lives she's been able to impact. It's very important in your young life to have someone who cares for you and shows interest in you, not even if you're in a vulnerable place, but just generally as well.
Yeah, it's not even the troubled kids that, like, it's not all troubled kids that are there. It's everyone. Everyone benefits from the youth center. I mean, some people don't even go into the youth center. It's just the skate park.
I feel like because it's in our backyard here at the W.C. O'Neill Arena that we get to sort of see the action going on there day to day. So it really is for any youth, especially if they haven't checked it out yet. It's a worthwhile venture.
And moving on, now that she's retired, there's a new leader, Amanda Harrington. She's going to be taking over. She has a service dog.
So tell us, what was your meeting like with her? I know you went over after Debbie's retirement party to talk to Amanda and learn more about her. What did you learn from that conversation?
She's really nice to talk to. Great replacement.
We're not expecting you to be Debbie Lord. We're expecting you to be Amanda Harrington. I already see some unique differences, but both of them clearly don't know what a good hockey team looks like.
Well, we'll have to look for more of your reporting on the youth center going forward. What was your takeaway from your interview with Debbie?
She's had a great time, 19 years. And she's helped so many people, and she just loved her job.
Here is a look right now at Lucas Kohler's interview with Debbie Lord at her retirement party.
I'm hoping it'll continue the way it has been going, and I think it will with Amanda. She's excellent. I've known her for years, and she's a goalie like me, and she's got the same interests, and I think it's going to be well. It's going to be good. I don't know, I hope them help them through their lives, because some of them really have a hard time struggling, especially now with the way things are in this world. They just need as many people to be there for them as they can, especially when it comes to just being there for them. And so, yeah. It's a little hard, but I'm at the elementary school now until the end of the year, so that kind of helps. It's going to be good. I go in there every day and have a coffee with them, so it's kind of neat. When everything's going crazy, I just walk away. Way too many. There's really way too many ones to remember. It's just their experience was something awesome. I'm a very lucky person to have that job, and I enjoy every minute of it. There were times when I was like, oh my dear God, but then, it works out. Yeah, kids work out.
What's with the funny socks?
Okay, I hate folding socks. I hate folding laundry. So I throw all my socks in one basket, and whatever 2 socks I pick out, that's what I wear. Never wear the socks. Who wants to waste time folding laundry?
That was Debbie Lord speaking to CHCO-TV's Lucas Kohler about her retirement. But there was another fun event in St. Stephen. You went to the Sports Wall of Fame.
I did. I went on Saturday last week to the Greater St. Stephen Sports Wall of Fame, and it's the 7th edition. So it's quite exciting. It's been going on for now multiple years. So it really is this go-to event that I think really, it feels like the whole community is there when you're there. This year they honored Rick Cotter, Roseanne Johnston, and the 1962-63 St. Stephen High School Spartans men team, who were the provincial champs. So it's a look at people who had impact on the community, athletes, as well as teams over the year, and really building up St. Stephen's sports presence to what it is today. And now with the world's oldest basketball court being there, we really do think of St. Stephen as this sports mecca for Charlotte County. So it's always fun to go to the Sports Wall of Fame. This year, definitely it was bittersweet. Founder Joe Peters passed away last October. So it was really his idea, this whole celebration that they do every year. So a lot of people in the room were also there in a way to pay tribute to Joe.
what a wonderful way to commemorate people's contribution to community sports. I remember when Dawn and another member of the board came in to have a chat with you at Southwest Magazine. And I remember writing that into a story for the Courier and how wonderful it was that they were honoring Joe in a way that was meaningful as one of the founders of that very beautiful installation at the Garceland Civic Center.
And it wasn't, it was destiny, I suppose. It ended up happening on Joe's birthday this year. So May 24th would have been Joe's birthday. And that was the date that was picked for the Sports Wall of Fame event. So Dawn Walker, who I talked to after, who's a member of the board as well, had some words to share about this year's ceremony and also about Joe Peters.
Well, this is our first Wall of Fame without Joe. Joe was certainly a key member. During my presentation for Joe, I made it perfectly clear that he was the founder. He's not one of, he was the founder. It was his idea, it was his vision, it was his dream that we turned this into a reality, and we're proud of Joe. We're proud of what he meant to our community and what he's done to bring this to life, and we couldn't be happier. I mean, we're sad that he's not here, but you know, he meant so much to everyone, and I know he was your contact. When we were talking about media, he said, well, I'm talking to Vicki, and it was almost sad when we met earlier, Vicki, when we were doing our TV interview, that you didn't know what had happened. And I felt bad that had occurred, because I know he meant a lot to you. And Joey was special. He was special, and without his initiative and his dedication and his commitment to sports excellence and recognizing what people are doing, I don't think this would have happened. And it was a happy event for us, and we certainly wish he was still here, but he's not, and we want his legacy to live on, and we're happy that it turned out so well today.
You're exactly right. It means a lot to us. We cover these events, but in doing so, you see the people that make your community work and build the community, and he definitely was that. Tell us a little bit about why today is so special for reasons that tie back to Joe, what day it is today.
Well, first of all, being Joe's birthday made it a bit extra special for what we were doing. And when we picked today's date for our induction ceremony, we had no idea it was Joe's birthday. So that was just a total coincidence. But it's just such a great opportunity to honor people who've done so much in the community. And Joe, you know, having been to different communities, when he would take his kids to sporting events, he saw these walls of fame in different places. And he just felt bad that we didn't have the opportunity to do what other communities that were so similar to ours, that they were doing such great things. And to be honest, the Civic Center, the timing of the Civic Center being here was great for our Wall of Fame. We really didn't have a place before that maybe would have fit the bill for a Wall of Fame. And you know, a great facility like this with such an awesome wall behind me and what you're taking pictures of, it just means a lot. And the feedback that we're getting from people all over the province, not only our community, but people who've come from far and away, and they just love what we're doing. It means a lot to them. And, you know, Bill Francis, who I quoted during my little talk, is a very prominent member of our community. And, you know, he understands what's going on here. And when he says that this is like the best event that goes on in our town, I mean, he means it, and that meant a lot to us. And it's been a special day, and we just hope that his legacy will continue, and I know it will, and we hope we can make this a special event every year.
Definitely more than his legacy here in St. Stephen. We saw a mayor from another community here tonight just to see what was happening, hearing word of the impact that it's had. You've been honored on the wall as well. Yes. Tell us a little bit about what it means to be a part of that wall as someone who did leave a legacy here in St. Stephen. Yeah,
to be recognized and be on that wall it's so cliche, but it's just so special to be there and to be recognized by your peers, to be recognized by the former players that maybe you've coached and you've touched, and the support that you've been given by them. When I walk into this arena, every time I walk by, and I almost have to pinch myself that, you know, Donnie Walker's on the Wall of Fame, and it's special to me, it's special to my family, it's special to the people that I've been a part of with their lives and coaching and teaching and officiating, and I know that's the same sentiment that we get from everyone. I mean, you saw the speeches today, you heard the speeches. You know, people are genuine when they say how appreciative they are of being on this wall and what it means to them. And that's exactly how I feel. I couldn't be happier each time we have one of these events, and me being here is certainly a great feeling for me.
The Garthland it's a hub of sports for really all of Charlotte County, so it influences a lot of people to walk by this wall. What do you think it does for the next generation growing up to see athletes of generations gone by and coaches and teams recognized in this way?
Well, I think it can do nothing but allow people to see what has happened in the past and maybe inspire them for the future. I mean, we're fortunate to have, like, for instance, my girls' basketball team come in here and serve as waitresses. And they get to see and they get to hear the speeches. And I remember when I gave my speech 2 years ago, they were all there and they were all listening. And they all told me how it impacted them, and if it can inspire them a little bit to maybe give back. And I think I may have told you before, I even had a player that I had last year immediately was giving back in the community as a coach in Fredericton. And her team won the little championship, and she was so proud, and she called me right up, and those things are special, and it just keeps perpetuating itself in terms of wanting to give back. And without people giving back and showing an interest in their communities, it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're giving back, that's special, and that's what we hope to do with this.
That was Don Walker talking to CHCO about the Greater St. Stephen Sports Wall of Fame, as well as the impact on the community of its founder, Joe Peters. I'm going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more of This Week Uncut.
I've got 4 people monitoring unofficially from Upper Mills to Milltown, Oak Bay, and down here. We've got brown stuff floating. We've got smells that's coming out of there, smells like sulfuric acid.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
Well, I have a significant story that I've been working on for a little while. At last month's Committee of the Whole, Councillor Brian Cornish, actually several months ago, he asked the mayor to write a letter to the provincial government requesting an investigation into pollution of the St. Croix River.
Okay, so this is the Municipal District of St. Stephen Council Committee of the Whole from...
Yes.
Okay.
So they received a response, and so they wanted to review that response. And so for context, anyone who lives in St. Stephen may have known over the last several decades, or noticed over the last several decades rather, that there is a smell in the air when it relates to the upper watershed, or they may have noticed some type of brown sludge in the water. That's what council is alleging. They received a response from that request, that very detail-oriented letter that the council sent, the mayor sent on behalf of council. And he was very upset with the response. They described the concerns as anecdotal. He was very upset with the length of the response. He said it was like a total of 55 words. So they actually, Councillor Emily Rodas actually challenged us as CHCO-TV and The Courier to look into the pollution of the St. Croix River. Now, I've never personally experienced what he's describing, but everyone around the table had some experience with the smell or the sludge. So I went and I looked at, what that looked like. I looked at the conversation, but I also got in touch with the St. Croix International Waterway Commission. Mm-hmm. So they described to me that while it's hard to compare what the river was like 10 to 15 years ago, not much has changed in terms of pollution. And that pollution is coming from both industrial and municipal facilities. Okay. But, improvements to wastewater facilities in Baileyville, Maine, Calais, and St. Stephen have resulted in positive changes. But the next step in this process is for me to file a right to information, which I have already done, for data, reports, sampling, all of that type of information, so that we can get a bigger look at sort of what has transpired over the last several years. So we've asked for a bit of a wider time frame, mm-hmm. Roughly a couple of years. It's kind of cumbersome to ask for 10 or 15 years worth of data, but if you ask for a couple and you kind of notice a pattern, you can then establish and ask for more. So that's the next step in this process. But it was a learning process for me, this story. So I was glad to start and be challenged by the council to do that.
And I imagine potentially complicated by when you're looking at the decommissioning of the Milltown Dam too. There are many factors that could be at play. And I know I've talked to Councillor Marg Harding in the past about it, because I know her property is right there. So there has been concern for a while, but I'm curious to hear what the studies show.
Yeah, and that you're right. Marg Harding was one of the councillors who did bring it up, although she said she hasn't noticed anything in the last several months, but the water is quite high. And the Passamaquoddy people are studying the water. The other unique thing about this waterway is that it is an international waterway. It doesn't just border St. Stephen and Calais, it borders two countries. So the care and the stewardship of this waterway belongs to both countries. So there is an International Joint Commission. They are hosting an open house, a meeting at the Garceland Civic Center next month, which we will be attending to be able to ask questions and to look at some of the data and the research that they've been doing. So hopefully we will have a better picture of what's been going on in the river, to give some reassurance to the folks in St. Stephen and the council as well.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more and potentially coming with you to that. That sounds exciting.
Here is the discussion from St. Stephen's Committee of the Whole.
Next up is the correspondence from the Minister of Environment and Climate Change on the potential pollution of the St. Croix River. Everyone has seen it, and you say you want to have a word?
I do.
Okay.
Non-stop for about 3 minutes.
Word away.
Mark.
No. Everybody.
Everybody. Don't look at Mark. I'm looking at some of the councils around here that have probably been around in engineering, thermal plant or electrical plants, military backgrounds, writing reports. And I am totally disgusted with this report. Bottom line is, we said, thank you, we have an opening, and it's got 6, 10, 12 words. Closing, if you have any questions or any further questions, please give me a call. The whole study on air quality and water quality comes down to 55 words. Yeah. Not a mention of air. Now, if they couldn't find some brown stuff floating in that river, here we go. They had those on. They didn't have them on, okay? That's what's out there. That's what they seen. They didn't even see that. I have no idea who did this study, but obviously, I'd like to have them in the room here tonight, because I've been part of the St. Croix River since I was a kid. Marg sees it right across from her house. I've got 4 people monitoring unofficially from Upper Mills to Milltown to Oak Bay and down here. We've got brown stuff floating. We've got smells that's coming out of there. It smells like sulfuric acid. I lived it when I was a teenager. I seen what it did. We talk about cancer rates. Smell that, shit that's coming across there. It goes clean down to Ward 3, okay? Ward 1 gets it real good. The people in my area are getting scared again. I have seen them scared because that river got washed out through that crap for 20 years. We wouldn't even eat the ducks out of it, let alone the fish. Now, they study the water. What'd they do, dip their finger in it and taste it? I have no idea. They got an air quality station, I believe, in Upper Mills. I think that's what it was. We never even got notified at Park there. This comes back with a 55 word says everything's hunky-dory. We didn't see any brown stuff. We didn't taste anything in the water. It's perfectly clear. What about those fish that just went up the river? Now those fish are in there. We tore the dam down. We got a whole bunch of fish going up the river, ingesting whatever's in that river and polluting the rest of them. Now the Aboriginal community is doing a study. I've got a copy of that as of today. The St. Croix water system apparently is doing a study. We studied this damn thing for the last 50 years or more than I know of, but this is a total insult to the town of St. Stephen and the mayor we put a document together to ask for a study. We have no idea what the quality of the air is. We have no idea what the quality of the water is. All I know is there's brown stuff in it and people are scared to swim in it, and you can almost taste it when you go out. So this person or individual or department who did this, bring them down. Because I sure as hell like to see them across this table for a little while, some questions, because that is the most disgusting report that I've ever seen in my entire life. Thank you very much. Right now, this thing has not ended. To me, it has just begun. Barg, you want to say something? You're part of this.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Your Worship. Well, the people came down about a week ago when the river was really, really high, okay? And they was across from my place. I don't know how in God's name they could ever collect anything there. The river was a torrent running down through there. Anyway, on the side of their truck was something about the Canadian Institute of Waterways. I'm not sure exactly. I just saw it at the end, but I can tell you that right at this point across from my place, I have not seen anything brown. Everything is perfect, but wait till the water goes down low. That's when you're going to see things. Yes, completely flush now, except for the, all the wooden stuff that you could build about 20 houses out of it. But anyway, nothing is there now, Councillor Cornish, that I can see across from my place like I could. So I will be in touch when I see the first thing and phone this number here in St. John. But right now, there's nothing. Thank you, Worship.
So the other thing that we were told when they removed the dam that we're going to start seeing when it does go lower is it has to naturally start cleaning up. But there's still stuff going on. We know that. And so my question is to council. I mean, this is our second reply. Now, do you want me to send another more direct email? Your Worship? Yes, Councilor Otis.
I know what Aaron Brockovich would do, and I think that this is that type of situation. I mean, one thing I noticed about the letter is in response to anecdotal concerns, it feels condescending. Like a few people sharing anecdotal concerns. I mean, I grew up on the St. Croix River. I've kayaked my entire life down off the ledge, and I can tell you, I know exactly what you're talking about. And there is such a potent smell to it in the summertime on a hot day, on certain nights. I just think that we need to be more direct and just state that realistically, this is beyond anecdotal concerns. I mean, there's been years of, they kind of asked us for the research, which was, I'm sorry, but we provided you the anecdotal concerns. Do we have to provide the research too? I mean, what is the role of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change if we're doing the research? Should we just send the residents down with their anecdotal concerns in some tubes? Anyway, I found that kind of odd.
That was a St. Stephen Committee of the Whole discussing a response on a request for an investigation into pollution in the St. Croix River. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with This Week Uncut.
I'm really excited for the first ministers' meeting in Saskatoon because New Brunswick is made for this moment in time. The priorities of the federal government and New Brunswick's strengths really line up. We saw that in the speech from the throne.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
You had a busy week this week, not just in terms of stories, but in terms of getting around this beautiful province. You were up in Fredericton, in the capital. Tell us a little bit about what we were doing up there.
Yeah, we decided to hit the road. CHCO-TV is a part of the Press Gallery, which is the group of journalists that visit the Legislative Assembly on a regular basis. And they cover the decisions and policies that are being decided by the highest level of government within New Brunswick. So I decided that that would be a great experience for Aiden, who is working with us this summer. I wanted to give him the scrum environment, and I think that means different things in sports. But a scrum is essentially a group of reporters who kind of gather around a minister or a member of the opposition or a member of the third party, the Green Party, and we ask them questions and they give us responses. And sometimes it gets a little testy and sometimes it gets a little heated, but it's a great environment and it's a great experience to learn from. So we brought Aiden. And Aiden, what were you looking for in terms of your conversation with Premier Susan Holt?
So today I wanted to discuss what her plans were for the meeting with Canada's premiers and the Prime Minister on June 2nd in Saskatoon. That will be a really big meeting as we get closer to the Prime Minister's goal of interprovincial free trade by July 1st. That'll be a pretty monumental meeting of the premiers. And there they'll have the opportunity to present what the Prime Minister called nation building projects. Those would be like ports, critical minerals, trade corridors, big plans that the federal government will fast track for provinces.
So and I kind of like a priority wish list, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, like that. And so they're going to fast track them to give them tighter guidelines and just to be able to get these things done and get ourselves through this kind of trade war that we got going on right now. And so I really wanted to talk to the Premier about what her priorities and exactly what plans she's hoping to table and bring to the discussion in Saskatoon. I didn't get much of an exact response. It was pretty tight-lipped about what projects specifically she's looking to see for the province. Here's my part of the scrum with Premier Susan Holt.
Oh, really excited for the First Minister's meeting in Saskatoon because New Brunswick is made for this moment in time. The priorities of the federal government and New Brunswick's strengths really line up. We saw that in the speech from the throne. There's a big focus on housing. New Brunswick is a leader in modular fabrication and modular housing. There was a big focus on defense. Clearly, we have CFB Gagetown here, which is where the military is made. There was a focus on minerals. New Brunswick has 21 of those critical minerals, and a focus on the kind of trade and energy corridors that we have been investing in, and the Port of St. John is a perfect example of that. We saw the Americold investment yesterday that's going to make that an even more competitive port to get goods through a cold supply chain, which is going to benefit food manufacturers in New Brunswick. So I'm really excited to go to the FMN meeting and to work with my colleagues to show how New Brunswick is a key player in this moment and in the nation building work that the federal government wants to do.
And how will you ensure the environmental protections, like if we're going to fast track these projects, will those environmental protections remain, or are we going to move fast and break things?
Oh, absolutely, the environmental protections remain. We have to do the same level of diligence, we just have to do it more quickly.
And what exactly are the priorities? Those projects will be specific projects. Are there any in mind that you have right now?
Oh, absolutely. Every province sent their list of projects forward, and now we're doing a lot of engaging back and forth between premiers and others to see where there's opportunities for regional collaboration and cooperation. Again, New Brunswick's really well positioned as kind of the glue of the Atlantic to bring together Nova Scotia and PEI and Newfoundland and Quebec in some cases to advance regional priorities for some of that trade and energy infrastructure. So we're really looking forward to it, and I think aligning federal and provincial environmental processes so that there is one process, one EIA, one permit will help us move projects forward at a speed that matches with the volatility of investment.
And what are the other sticking points that you're hearing from other premiers, like Newfoundland protecting some of their own resources? Are you hearing the same? Like, what are Quebec's resources that you were hearing from them that they're a little more hesitant on agreeing?
Switching to the conversation on internal trade, you're right that the conversation with Quebec has been a little more difficult because there is less willingness to maybe adopt standards that are in place elsewhere or be more flexible on some of their trucking regulations, on some of their labor rules. And so we're working with them to try to get there. We recognize that every province in Canada has maybe particular resources that are core to their identity, as Newfoundland demonstrated, but I also think we're making a lot of progress. The way that labor mobility has advanced here in New Brunswick, meaning anyone can come here tomorrow and work in a regulated profession on day one, is great news for employers that are looking to get jobs done, and some of that time that it takes to get that certification recognized really holds up jobs. So it's a great time to be improving internal trade, and New Brunswick has been pushing this. We have taken our exemptions off. We were the only province to do so, to come to the FPT table, having already approved through cabinet an elimination of exemptions. And so we're going to continue to push, and the federal government has been pretty receptive on CFIA, on Coastal Trading Act, and on a number of things that'll help us all do more business with less red tape across Canada.
Is that July 1st goal reasonable at this point?
I think so. I think there's willingness, and I think the pieces that we've discussed, you see how the labor mobility piece has moved through. We're going to have that get royal assent June 6th. We see the same with the alcohol pieces. We've seen the MOUs that we signed with Ontario and us and Newfoundland, and those happened well before July 1st. So I'm optimistic that Prime Minister Carney has said this is going to happen by Canada Day. It's one of his priorities, and I'm confident that it'll get done.
That was Susan Holt, sort of answering what project she's hoping to bring up in the meeting in Saskatoon coming next week.
So I guess we'll hear more about that next week. It'll give us more to talk about in this show next week as well. I'm curious to know what your experience was like being in a scrum up at the Ledge.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The other reporters there are quite welcoming. They've been in my shoes at some point in their careers a little bit a while ago, but they were quite welcoming and kind of showing me the ropes a little bit. Certainly Nathalie was from her experience there. You got to fight for your spot, but that's the usual.
I warned him about that. I said, he was there on Thursday before being there today. And I said, you really have to kind of put your elbows out a little bit, because there will be moments where journalists have questions that they want to ask, and time is running out on that particular minister because they've got schedules they've got to keep, right? And so I said, sometimes you have to get your voice in there and you just have to ask the question over the other person. Everybody's very respectful at the press gallery. It's an environment that's respectful. We all work together. We all know each other. We were comfortable in that environment, but I was glad that Aidan was able to have that. But it wasn't the only minister that you spoke to. You spoke to Minister Gilles Lepage about how these nation building projects are going to get through the environmental kind of loopholes or kind of like regulation in order to move forward.
Yeah, so traditionally these projects are held up in a lot of consultation, and most of that consultation is towards especially things like ports or wharves. They get held up in a lot of environmental kind of protections and making sure that we're not breaking the rules that we've set for ourselves. So I wanted to talk to the minister in charge of environment and climate change to see how we are going to, not move too fast and break too many things if we're going to get greenlit to move through these projects fast from the federal government. And so, you can hear how the Minister Gilles Lepage answered my questions.
No, on this file, if it goes faster, but it will be as rigorous as it is, because our EIA process is 6 months to 2 years, but the Feds is about 5 years. So if the Feds decision goes and they'll respect our EIA process, it will go shorter, of course.
That was Environment Minister Gilles Lepage speaking with the Courier's Aidan Rayner. But it wasn't the only story that Aidan worked on this week. He wrote us a story from St. Stephen Council about the public hearing of objections from on the municipal plan. What did you hear from the public at the meeting?
So there were three major topics that were covered by the public or objected to by the public, and those were how the plan deals with housing, the backup generator for the water treatment plant, and the priorities of the town were our new council chambers before a backup generator. And the biggest topic certainly was the business improvement area of St. Stephen, the BIA. That is going to see a major shakeup just in the way that it's been funded.
So what that means is the intention of the plan is to take it from 20 cents per $100 of assessment for those businesses that are included in the business improvement area to just 1 cent per $100 of assessment. So that basically cuts the funding from that levy, which means that the executive position that is there essentially doesn't exist anymore. But the executive person, Heather Donahue, had resigned, and we did report about that in a previous story. But Aidan, you were able to talk to Mayor Alan McEachern about all of these things, and what did he have to say?
He had a lot to say, certainly about how the plan tackles housing. St. Stephen has been dealing with a housing crisis, certainly for a little while now. And this plan has to bring together the rural parts of the municipality and the urban to address those together. A lot of that is getting creative about the different types of housing and the bylaws and zoning that the municipality allows for housing. So that'll be like improving on allowing granny suites throughout the municipality to get more multi-generational housing. I actually spoke to Alex Henderson as well, the
senior planner at the Southwest Service Commission.
Exactly, and he said that this plan was quite unique in the way that it tackles the differences between rural and urban housing. Mayor McEachran kind of said that as well. Like the town has to move pretty quickly on this stuff. We need to be addressing this. This is quite a hot topic that's been coming up. But also too, like some of the public had questions around the infrastructure and the strain that added units would put on the existing infrastructure, and this plan does allow for that. It encourages developers by way of working with them to get grants and other ways to improve the infrastructure to allow more units and more strain on the existing town, or municipality infrastructure that they have there now. Water treatment backup generator was brought up as well. Mayor McEachran said basically we have to get to the plan before we get to the plan, we get a budget for it, and then we move on to prioritizing those projects. He said that's probably unlikely to be a big issue because they are planning to reduce their council members in St. Stephen. So they will probably not need bigger chambers to hold council meetings. If they can rearrange, if they reduce the size of the council, they can rearrange a little bit and make sure that no one's got their backs to the public.
Less than a year away too. We're looking at 2026, but next spring. So
so that'll be the backup generator. Council chambers will be after that. So we'll have to adopt the plan, get to the budget, and that's a little further down the line. But the biggest one was certainly the changes to the BIA. Mayor McEachran has had some issues with the way that it functions right now. Currently, it stops at the Guardian Drug in Queen Street there. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really go past. And it's a really large growth area for St. Stephen. You have the Kent and the Canadian Tire there, and Carmen's, that would be outside of that BIA catchment area. And he said that it doesn't bring in enough money to be kind of self-sustainable at the moment. He made references and compared it to the St. Andrews BIA that kind of doesn't have those issues. He had been trying to work with the BIA on getting a little bit wider area to include those businesses. And he said there wasn't much room on that. They weren't quite as amenable to moving out there. And he'd also said that they hadn't been doing as many events as they had before, and the town has been increasingly taking them on. And they have their own events coordinator that takes on events like that, like International Fest, the Chocolate Festival, and stuff like that. That no longer is captured under the BIA. So that is kind of why it'll be certainly a change, but it's not like it's going away. It's just kind of moving to future St. Stephen.
So I wonder if there will be any look towards, I know the BIA was heavily involved in the mural projects in St. Stephen, as well as St. Stephen dollars around Christmas time. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that big decrease in funding and what that ultimately means for the community. But we'll definitely continue to follow that.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with This Week Uncut.
I rise today to invite my colleagues to join me in congratulating Herb McGee of St. Andrews, who celebrates his 100th birthday tomorrow.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
You had a really exciting week because you got to go visit Herb McGee.
Herb McGee is my neighbor. He's my friend. He is a hero. I was going to say local hero, but he's a national hero. He's an international hero. He's been knighted by France. This is true. I was actually at his house a couple years ago when he was knighted by France for what he did in World War II in terms of securing liberty for Europe. And they knighted him, and I think all of Canada wants to celebrate him this week. I was over at his house. There was even a big certificate from Prime Minister Mark Carney. So I wasn't the first one to wish him a happy birthday, but I think I was the only one there for 3 hours. I was there for 3 hours too. Herb said to me on his 100th birthday, he would sit down with me and talk. We don't talk about the war a lot because it's a really hard topic for anyone. Yeah. He was a tail gunner in bomber command. They only had weeks of life expectancy. Back then, he flew over 40 missions over France and Germany. So what he accomplished, what he did was extraordinary. Doesn't love to talk about it, but he does love to talk about a number of topics. And a lot of it has to do with, standing up for what is right, what your role is in democracy, how it's a muscle, and he exercises that every day. I could talk about Herb forever. He writes the government regularly at all levels. He sends me often copies of these letters, and he's an amazing guy.
Herb is welcome to come work for us whenever or volunteer.
I kept the cameras rolling. I thought 3 hours. This is gold, and some really great advice, and we're going to be sharing that with our viewers very soon. But I really did want to make sure we were able to wish him once again a big happy birthday on this show. And we'll be playing a bit of our interview with Herb in the news next week, but I have 3 hours to make multiple shows with. So I felt very honored that I got to be the journalist of choice there that day to sit down with Herb. It's definitely a blessing to know him. He also knew my grandma. My grandma would be 103 right now if she was still alive. So it's nice to be able to share memories at a local level. My grandma, she would have been Elizabeth Mallory back when, but she was Elizabeth Frost when she died. So yeah, they knew each other well. So we're able to share memories of her as well.
Well, everyone here at CHCO-TV and The Courier wishes Herb a happy birthday. So congratulations for making it this far. And I can't imagine the lives that he's lived in those 100 years. It's got to be amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 3 hours barely touched the surface of it. But MLA Kathy Baucus of St. Croix also wanted to share her words of celebration regarding Herb, which she did in the legislature this week.
Recognize a member for St. Croix.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to invite my colleagues to join me in congratulating Herb McGee of St. Andrews, who celebrates his 100th birthday tomorrow. Herb tells me on that date he will start planning his next 100 years. Herb was born into a large family and is no stranger to hard work. He held his first job running a junk business at age 12 and was a church janitor at 14, looking after 2 wood furnaces, the parish hall, tennis courts, and the church lawns, all for a grand total of $14 a month. Herb joined the RCAF at age 18 and was a tail gunner in several missions over France and Germany during the Second World War. In 2015, Herb was awarded the rank of Knight of the French National Order of the Legion of Honor, the highest national honor bestowed by France in recognition of his personal involvement in the liberation of France. Happy birthday, Herb, and thank you for your service.
That was St. Croix MLA Kathy Baucus wishing Herb McGee a happy birthday in the Legislative Assembly.
100 years.
We're going to look ahead now to what is coming up for the rest of next week. It does appear to be, folks at home, a quieter week. However, I do have some news that I will be updating on the Stein Lake fire. People in St. Andrews will be uniquely aware of that fire and the work that the Courier has done to investigate the lack of an alert ready. We have some new news, so we're going to be working on that. I'm not going to give anything away at this point because I don't want to. But I will be working towards a story for early next week. We also have the St. Andrews Council, and we are in the belief that we will have some sort of conclusion or finality to a decision on the St. Andrews Wharf.
There's a very good chance if you're watching this after Monday, you already know.
Yeah.
But as we tape this, it will be a big wharf discussion next week at Council, and very, I think that I imagine it will be a very full room.
I'm almost nervous. I think, I don't get nervous very often, but I'm almost nervous about how this turns out. This is a very high stakes project. A lot of people are either for it or against it. And we've seen some of that play out on social media and in the public. So I'm eager to see what happens.
I am too. I know this was a project that was supposed to get off the ground last year. There was some delays. It's supposed to happen again this fall. So we'll find out what happens Monday night. There's definitely been some pushback though that you've been following.
Yeah. And also while we were rubbing shoulders with politicians, you were shucking clams.
That's true. Oysters.
Oysters. Very different species.
Very exciting though, because I was at Mink Brook Oyster Farm, and this is actually an oyster farm in the Bay of Fundy, one of only two in the Bay of Fundy. And we ended up taking those oysters over to NBCC Culinary School. I was with Kyle Stewart. I think everyone in Charlotte County, if you haven't been to the Rhubarb yet, Chef Kyle Stewart is there. He's very well renowned. I would say in our part of the world, but it's really beyond there. He's an incredible chef. He had Emily there from the Rhubarb. She's a new hire from NBCC. She's now his pastry chef. And Brad Henderson, on one of his last days as mayor, joined me in the kitchen of NBCC. We shucked oysters together. We made dessert. NBCC said they were willing to enroll me, fast track me into their program, but not Mayor Henderson, because I was just that much. We both weren't that great, actually. I'll tell you that.
Listen, I'm going to put that in my back pocket. Not Mayor Henderson.
I may have been pressuring them under the camera spotlight and microphone. So,
well, while I love oysters, I'm grateful you did not send me on another boat.
I was all the boat stories. I don't mind. I love a good reason to get on a boat. So, that was my experience with NBCC and at the oyster farm. I look forward to putting that in an episode of Good Day from the Bay, because it really is a true story about the Bay and also our local school. That is really an incredible program that goes on to start the careers of some of the incredible chefs in our area and beyond.
Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.